Hey there, everybody. My name is Sam Brace, and I am the Director of Customer Education for Cloudinary, and you are about to watch and listen to DevJams. For all of you that are coming in, thank you for being a part of this amazing episode where we're going to be talking with Joel Turner about some of the awesome work that he has done to incorporate Instagram, develop a project that's allowing to bring in the illustrations that he's sharing through that social media service, and using Cloudinary to be able to do so. Because on DevJams, we're featuring developers like Joel and many others who are developing inspiring, innovative, interesting projects that happen to use Cloudinary in some way, and of course, our overall development projects. So we're going to be talking about all things API, SDK, and overall code-related concepts. So with every one of these episodes is Becky Peltz, and she is the overall curriculum development manager, program manager at Cloudinary when it comes to developer education. We're always having her on these episodes, and it's always a pleasure because of the wealth of development experience that she brings to these conversations. So Becky, wonderful to have you here once again.
Hey, thank you, Sam. It's great being here.
So tell me, why are we excited to talk to Joel here today?
You know, what I really notice about this project and this whole discussion that we're going to have is we all interact with websites that have images, and especially like social media, and in this case will be Instagram. And what I like is that you can simplify your interaction with the images, video, whatever type of digital media that you're working with by moving it to Cloudinary. And that's what I think we're going to see here, because Joel is able to pull his images out of Instagram into Cloudinary and then moving it around in different stacks and different formulations. He has simplified his work. So it's a neat little story. I really hope we can share the code and everything that he's done for that.
I agree. I think one thing that's very cool about the way that he's kind of gone about this is that he's made this social media service, which of course he's used for many different purposes, and kind of almost turned it into his CMS for all things illustration related, and being able to not just be solely reliant on the Instagram APIs, but have it that way you can involve the content delivery networks and all the various things when it comes to web-based delivery and caching that Cloudinary can provide. It creates this really nice, stable way to make sure his illustrations are shown without any hiccups or issues. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, no, it's exactly very well said. Thanks. Yeah.
So before we jump on over to Joel, what I do want to make sure because this may be your first time going through DevJams here with Becky and myself and the Cloudinary team, but always know that all of our past episodes are going to be located at cloudinary.com/podcasts. And that's where you can see that all podcasts that our team has developed for the DevJams program, as well as our sister program, MX Matters, where we talk about thought leadership when it comes to what they call the visual economy. That's where you can see all of the various episodes. And then, of course, if you are a listener or a watcher of podcasts on other services, such as the YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and wherever else, we're probably there too. And on top of that, also at our Cloudinary Academy, which is where all training things take place. So know that if you are saying, wow, this was a good episode, I would love to do more of these or be part of more of these, well, know that you can always do all of that there. And just to point out, we do have an excellent and vibrant Cloudinary community for users like you. So if you are inspired by some of the conversations that me and Becky and Joel are about to have, know that you can always continue those conversations here at community.cloudinary.com. So without further ado, let's bring in our friend Joel and start talking a little bit about this amazing project that he has gone and developed. So Joel, welcome to the program.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to the space that you're in today, where, as we've pointed out, you're using Instagram, you're an illustrator, you're kind of combining these two things together. But even before that, how did you get into the overall development space? All things that I'm very interested to learn about.
Yeah, studied graphic design in college, and that kind of morphed into working on websites. As soon as people know you have some sort of design, they tends to be design everything. So I spent a couple of years just tearing apart websites and trying to figure it all out, and got into HTML, CSS pretty solidly. And then, that just kind of morphed into more of a technical role with companies, where I was kind of the IT webmaster, graphic designer, all that. And that kind of kicked some of my design sense down a little bit, I guess. I was spending so much time in front of the screen and wanting a break from that. So I started drawing every day and sharing those on Instagram, and knowing that, they're going to be bad at first, but hopefully I would progress in public. And so I got a couple of years of drawings.
Yeah, and your drawings are wonderful. So
thank you.
If we don't see them right away, we'll definitely be taking a look at them. And I just so appreciate the fact that you have the attitude of, I don't care if it's not a perfect drawing, I'm going to get it out there. It's going to be put online. It's going to be sort of cataloged, as we'll see. So yeah, it's a very, very good approach.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Joel, what led you to starting to say, because I love the idea of learning in public or doing things in public, as you're pointing out. It's a great way to get instant responses, but it encourages you to keep going through the practice. But what got you to say, I want to post this content on Instagram? What was that turning point?
I think I was seeing a lot of hand letters on at the time. This was 2015, I think, 2014, 2015. And the community around hand lettering was so supportive and beautiful. So I thought, maybe this is a safe place to start exploring this. And sure enough, everyone was so supportive and warm, and we just kind of all bounced everything back together. And I think I got to an emotional point where I just wanted to do something in public that was different than my normal day-to-day, and try to get rid of all the fear and anxiety around shipping something. And there was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a critical public, that's for sure. And even putting anything on social media, you're putting yourself at risk, I guess. But one thing about Instagram that I've always appreciated is that it is a more visual medium, more visual social media. You're not sharing links, you're not making little, snide remarks. You're saying, hey, take a look at this. So I think that's a great place to share.
So then looking at this, and I feel like I'm going to bring up your screen here so people can understand some of this, because now that we can see that you're doing all of this amazing work with hand lettering, you've got great illustrations taking place, you were taking this content, you were ultimately bringing it also to your personal web space. But then because of that, it sounds like there was some type of pain point or maybe some type of issue with getting the content from Instagram to the Joel Turner personal space. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, there came a point where I wanted to share some of what I thought were my better pieces in one collected area. And at the time, I was still on WordPress and found a couple of WordPress plugins that, dealt with Instagram, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. I couldn't narrow it down very specifically. And then Gatsby came along and shifted my whole mental model of what could be a source for a website. And that's when the idea of using Instagram as a CMS by adding hashtags to all of these posts, like these that are up here, all have a JMT_featured hashtag on them. That way I can search my user and those hashtags and get that whole list. And Gatsby worked really well with that sort of system.
And to be clear, so you're adding those hashtags, like let's say in the description of the post, and then it's able to extract that from there?
Yeah. And there was a limitation on Instagram, which we can kind of go into later, but for a while, they wouldn't allow you to edit your original description, I guess, for the post. So I would have to add those hashtags later on in the comments. And so
there's always a way around, you know.
Yeah. So when I'm pulling from them, I have to look through multiple comments as well.
Got it. Okay. So I'm starting to understand the workflow. So Joel draws something fantastic. He documents it in Instagram, makes sure that there's a certain hashtag that's been applied there for tagging purposes. So then now that you've applied the tag, it sounds like then that's acting as a signal to whatever service that you need to be able to display it onto the website. And I know you just mentioned Gatsby. So is that what's happening there? Is Gatsby involved in that process?
Originally it was. Yeah, there's a plugin from one of the community members called Gatsby Source Instagram that pulled all that, pretty much anything from your user in. And then I added a little feature to that to also filter down on hashtags and let those through.
So I wanted to call out a little bit there about Gatsby Source, because you'll see if you go out to Gatsby, and Gatsby, if anyone's not familiar, is, you know, a static site generator for producing websites, and it's now been purchased by Netlify, but always deployable there. But the Gatsby Source is something that they created to allow you to go in, you know, to basically API your way into many different sources, but then get it into that GraphQL Gatsby data layer. So that's kind of, if you go out, you see, you know, Gatsby Source, contentful Gatsby Source, you know, all these different things. So you found one that was for Instagram, and that was kind of your starting point to getting into Gatsby.
Yeah, exactly. And that exact plugin didn't quite support the hashtag feature. So that little bit I added to the plugin, and then that shows up in your Gatsby GraphQL as all the hashtags, an array of hashtags that are on that Instagram post.
So, and that was kind of like, was that your first step into open source, you know, as submitting PRs and working with developers like that?
Yeah, I'd done a minor one before that was just, you know, one character change, but this was like the first actual feature, and a little bit of a complex one, but I wouldn't say people were clamoring for this feature. It was.
I don't think anybody realized you could tag Instagram, kind of like we have tagging in Cloudinary, you know, to help us manage. But to be able to tag your Instagram using a hashtag is a really great idea. So
yeah, it ended up working out really well. And actually Cloudinary's ability to use tags was a major part of my decision to use Cloudinary for the one API that I want to pull from for my site.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for here, because that's the connection that I might be missing. Because like I understand that you have this flow. To me, it seems like it's almost that would work perfectly. Like you're querying Instagram, you're getting all the data you need, you're getting a place to do it. Where did Cloudinary come into the process? Why did you decide that we were part of the? When I say we, Cloudinary, why were we part of the process?
Yeah, there were two major pieces of that. One, I was exploring building my site in SvelteKit and Next.js, and I didn't want to have to redo all the images everywhere that I went. You know, that each has their own way to handle images, and I love the simplicity of a Cloudinary URL where you can just add whatever parameters you need to there. So it felt more portable if I could leverage Cloudinary in that way. And the big reason was every time I opened my website locally to write a new post or anything, the Instagram API had very aggressive limits. So you spin it up once, it works. If you have to restart the dev server, it's not going to work again for 15 to 30 minutes or sometimes more than that. So I got real tired of that flow.
I would get tired of that too. If I had to say like, oh, for me to do something that should be fairly simple, it's going to take me 15 to 30 minutes to do, I would be looking for alternatives immediately. So I understand exactly why you went down that path.
And I think the thing too, when you submit things to social media, a lot of times I just go in with the idea that I'm giving it up my content. I don't own it anymore. I don't have a really great way to access it again. But what you've done is kind of open that up. So now when you get it in Cloudinary, you do own it, and there's many ways for you to interact with it. So it's a good idea.
Yeah, and the kind of in that vein, the service is meant to hopefully pull from other endpoints, maybe Google Photos or iPhotos, things like that. I have plans for that in the future. My wife is really good at photography, and it'd be nice to be able to pull her photos from Google Photos and display them on her site. And,
that's really great.
I would love to be able to see a little bit of how you got it all to work. Is there any way we can dive into some of the code, take a look at how this overall flow worked?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
So start with so this is the service. It's mainly all in one file. That's just a couple of the functions here. So we have our setup for the Cloudinary API, just getting all the right config in there.
So just to be clear, we're no longer talking about one of the Gatsby source. This isn't a script that you wrote, Instagram Cloudinary, that deals specifically with this.
Yep. This is bypassing that whole flow. And originally, after I set this up, got my images up on Cloudinary, I was able to use the Gatsby source Cloudinary to pull those back into
okay, Gatsby. Yeah. So you found that
worked, flawlessly. Never had to worry about timeouts or anything. So that was a huge improvement just right there. So if we go down to where we're calling the file here, the first step, we're fetching all the posts from Instagram, and then from there we'll convert those into the shape that I want to send up to Cloudinary. That's going to have the tags and the public ID or the name of it. Then we upload those, and then few pieces here just to make sure that they did upload correctly, which I never had a problem with. Just being a little redundant there.
Yeah, no, good idea to use those Netlify or the webhooks.
Yeah, and then it tells Netlify to go build my site again once it's good. We can. So when we fetch from Instagram, it's just this one URL with parameters. So you can give it your Instagram ID, and then it's going to call just your user. It's not going to crawl all of Instagram to find these hashtags. So whatever you tag, you're only going to get yours, which was key for me. If somebody else tagged something JMT featured, I didn't want theirs on my site necessarily. But then you can specify.
One thing, part of my ignorance on this, where is the hashtag being specified in this?
So in this one, you actually just specify that you want comments and you want the description. And then when that comes back, the Instagram object, I think I might even have the types here. They'll have the comments, which will have hashtags in it, which you kind of have to parse out a little bit. And then sometimes they'll have, a little bit extra.
Okay, no, that's really helpful.
And right now, I'm sort of supporting carousels, just the first image of a carousel. But that was a fun gotcha I ran into. So yeah, once we get all the posts back from Instagram, then we can start converting them into what I'm calling an upload post, which is just the shape that I want to give Cloudinary, all the required fields and the array of tags, which is the important bit.
So you're specifying a folder, a public ID, and then you're taking your hashtags from Instagram and turning them into Cloudinary tags.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and the folder works really well for this. Just having an illustration folder that matches with this whole model. And I chose to name the images with the timestamp, so I could sort them again on the front end. So it's whenever they were posted on Instagram, and then I sort reverse on that.
Well, I think that's pretty smart, frankly, because like if a timestamp is acting as a unique identifier, there never could be identical timestamps, likely, unless you were really doing something crazy, in my opinion. So I think that's a nice way to look at it, because it makes sense to you. It's not true randomization, but it's randomization in the sense that you're not going to be accidentally overwriting files or anything like that. So I think that was an excellent identifier for what you're naming things, putting them into Cloudinary.
Especially when you're using tagging, it's not so important to like put a big description into your public ID, because you've got all that description in the tags.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's not like they come with names since they're on Instagram. It's not a
You'd have to run them through some kind of an AI, which we have, but yeah.
I definitely thought about it, but so far this is working pretty well. But this is the big bit that kind of reduces all the comments down to one big string. So it combines all the comments and the description into just a large string that I can then use a regex to find any of the hashtags that I specified.
I got to say, your code looks so clean. I know when I was looking through this, I was like, this is really great. It's very easy to read.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I don't mean to just be like, Becky, I agree, but like, oh my gosh, like it's so easy to follow. So this is fantastic.
Thank you.
I guess this is when a designer starts coding, they know how to make the code look good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And been working on way too many projects where I go back to my own code 6 months later and have no idea what it does. So
yeah,
it's nice to document it all. And these are the regexes for all those hashtags that I'm pulling into my site. So I can just say anything that's J anything and ends in 2017, which this is going to be. I mistagged a few photos. Some were add an extra letter at some point or an extra underscore. So this catches all of that, makes sure that it's Joel M. Turner ABC's 2017. And then same with all the others here.
Yeah, it's nice to get those all in one place too. When you just have those scattered throughout your code, that's pretty hard to find.
Yeah, so after that, then we create the new timestamp and then the ID based on that. So it's creating it with the timestamp of the post, the created time of that post, and then using the post ID from Instagram. So if I ever need to go look up that image on Instagram, I have that post ID right there, which I've never had to, but just in case.
Yeah.
Kind of works out. And having the timestamp first allows me to keep that sort.
You kind of have like a bidirectional index there between Cloudinary and Instagram.
Yeah, definitely. And then if we already have that ID in there, we start to add the tags based on is this a new upload post that we're adding? Otherwise, if we already have it, then we're just going to add the new tags that we just found into the original tags. So this just loops over all the posts and make sure that we get all the tags into the posts.
Oh, because over time people are going to be commenting, and so you might pick up more tags to add.
Potentially, yeah. Or what often happens is I scroll through some of my posts and say, oh, that one should be tagged this, or something else. So I might add it to the featured or remove it from featured or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Absolutely.
And then we do then we send it up to Cloudinary once we have all those. And this is just using the upload function from the API, and just give it a few parameters that we defined in our upload post, and always works so well. At first I was nervous because I was thinking, well, I've got potentially hundreds of posts here that I need to upload. What, is there no bulk uploader that can handle this? And when I was reading through the docs, everyone mentioned, oh, just use the upload function. It's fast. It works for that. I was like, okay, can it be that fast? And yeah, it is.
That's really good to hear. I know we have some situations where people have like thousands and thousands of things they need to migrate, and we have to write, multi-threaded or kind of functions to do it. But how many would you guess you're uploading here? Maybe 100?
Yeah, probably. I think it gets up to 200.
200. So this
somewhere
looks
around
really,
there.
yeah. So it is fast. Yeah.
Yeah, I was blown away by that. And again, I have a little catch here just in case one of the uploads fails. And I think I only ran into that once, and it was when before I had formed this correctly. It was just a malformed request to Cloudinary. So.
And you're running this in Node, like with Node.js.
Yeah.
One thing I could call out here, though, is that they did make the V2 uploader a promise, so you can, await it if you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It was an improvement that they made, so that you don't have to wrap it. But it's good to see that you can wrap it too, and it still works. Just you don't have to upgrade your code, even though they upgraded the functionality there. So
yeah, I'll have to look at that. It's a little cleaner to read for me.
Yes, if you just await that, you'll
That's awesome.
One question I have here, Joel. So I can see the overall upload process is taking place. It's clean, it's simple, it's scalable from what I can see here. So if you decide to start illustrating every single day, this can handle the hundreds, if not thousands of illustrations that's going to be coming from Instagram out of Cloudinary. But one thing that I noticed when I was taking a look at your site is that you have certain transformations that you're applying to these various images. I think for consistency purposes, maybe for optimization sides of things. Talk to me about that, and also maybe where those transformations are being applied in the overall code you have here.
Transformations as in?
Like I can see like you're adding like fauto to be able to optimize the form.
Gotcha.
And be able to resize it to like maybe with 400 on the gallery view, but then the carousel view, it's at 700 pixels width, all of that detail.
Yeah, and that kind of comes down to another great Cloudinary utility. I think Colby made it. Next Cloudinary.
For Next.js or for Netlify, yeah.
This one is the wrapper around next image that allows for Cloudinary URLs, and it, as soon as I learned about it, I threw it in there because I had so many troubles getting it just right between next image and the Cloudinary URLs. Just mainly the width and height. It just never gave me the quality that I wanted necessarily. But now using using that component, it allows all the right parameters to go into the Cloudinary URL. So now we get fauto, qauto, and all the right sizes. All the you can even do responsive sizes pretty easily with that. So you get the kind of the best of the both worlds of Next image plus Cloudinary.
Oh, that's exciting.
That is really cool. Yeah. You know, Colby's done some really great work. Even like he put a plugin in Netlify to just add fauto, qauto to everything. So using a fetch. So it's like very easy to get that going. But this is Next Cloudinary, isn't it? Is that what it is?
Yeah. And right now I've got it. I'm using the CLD image from Next Cloudinary. And that's, I think the docs on that are on its Space Jelly.
The front end SDK, like the React front end SDK. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is my website code. Now it's on Next.js. And this component's a little weird. I'm wrapping that CLD image with Chakra's image just so I can apply some Chakra styles to it. Chakra UI is like a little component UI library that I'm using throughout the site.
That's great, though. So you can not only take advantage of Next Cloudinary to get the sizes and responsiveness, but then you can even wrap that in another styling type of UI. So that's a component.
That's pretty cool. Like I honestly, like I feel like this is my first time really seeing this part, and this is what I'm taking away from this episode.
No.
This was fun, and without people like Colby sharing all the cool things and in this podcast, sharing all the things that you can do, I wouldn't have gotten this exact flow down. So it's nice to be able to keep optimizing, keep playing.
I think Colby, you know, in doing this with Cloudinary Image, he made it almost like a data-driven component. So rather than you having to learn all the details of Cloudinary Image and all the functions and whatnot, you just pass in a few bits of data with height, sort, whatever, and he takes care of all that for you. So that is nice.
Yeah, and we can kind of see how I'm implementing that here. Some of this is a little bit Next image, and some is just for Cloudinary. The width and height and the source are the big ones for Cloudinary. From there, it handles all the others, which you can also add, you know, different styles, different parameters that Cloudinary supports, and so all that can be added here, which makes that really nice.
Yeah, that's great.
One thing that I really love that you have in here is the placeholder. Like you're doing a blur, and that's coming from the fact that everything's front end, and you're doing that. That's great. I love the fact that like you have like low quality image placeholders through that area. I also really love the fact that you're bringing in a lot of the details through the alt in here as well. This is, I mean, there's a lot to like about this. This is fantastic.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and part of the feature on this site, I'll demonstrate. When you click on one of these, it comes up in a light box, so you can get a little bit bigger view. And the other piece is the reason I have 3 different sizes on it is you can adjust the sizing of the grid. So you can see these all.
Cool. Yeah, that's really neat. Now, what gave you that? What component gave you that? That was Lightbox did that?
Yeah, I created my own little Lightbox component, and we can see that these are just slightly sized larger than what I'm rendering them at, but that allows for any kind of wiggle room with mobile to desktop. But it adjusts the sizes based on which grid mode I'm in, which is nice. So if you want to keep it at the smaller grid mode, you don't have to download the massive images.
Yeah.
But
Well, the nice thing I like about this too, Joel, is that let's say that in time you decide to adjust the sizes for the Lightbox. Let's say that you want a 4x4 grid at some point or a 5x5. It's where, because you're keeping the base original in Cloudinary, and then you're just changing with size requirements based on what you have in your code, you can always just declare a different size, then it'll transform it and make sure it's optimally placed. So you're kind of future-proofing the ability to grow this grid as you so choose with the way that you've done this. So this is very smart. This is very, very smart.
Thank you. Yeah, this also allows for, say I wanted to showcase Instagram images that weren't artwork, and I wanted to focus on people's faces and things like that. Instead of having to, figure that out every time, you just add that parameter, crop. And,
gravity face.
Yep.
Yeah, nice. Wow.
Just makes it a lot easier if you're really trying to dial things in.
Yeah,
and you want to take that elsewhere.
Gravity. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is really.
Is this component available open source? Is this something that people can go check out?
Let's see. Outside of that, so those are the way that we render the images, and here's the grid that we adjust based on the input of the whichever icon you chose for the grid, and then it'll kick off this Lightbox, which has another just same sort of image that we had there. And then a few other navigation pieces on the sides. And then, so after we get our images up to Cloudinary, and it kicks off a new build, this whole site is static, so it's doing everything at build time right now. I might explore server side coming soon, but it should be pretty much the same flow. We have on the illustration page for our get static props, this is where it gets all the data that needs to be rendered on that page. So I've got a function to grab all of those images that we just uploaded. This is using the Cloudinary search API. So you just designate which folder you're looking in, and you want to sort by public ID. That's that timestamp piece that allows me to sort based on that. And then right now I've just got a hard-coded 800 just to keep it safe. I don't have that many posts coming in yet, but one night maybe I'll tag.
It's aspirational.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's a cursor too with that call. So if you ever need to, you're up to 2,000, whatever, you can grab a cursor and keep going. It'll just keep pulling. Yeah.
That'll be helpful. And then, you just specify that you want the tags to come back with all those images. And it gives you this nice, nicely shaped image response. So you have so many fields that you could use if you wanted to off of this. And I kind of like looking through those, just, the geeky part of me loves seeing all those stats.
Yeah.
But for the display purpose, I only needed just a few fields here. And then here we're just adding these tags, whatever we found in this this image. We're going to add that image to the tag set that I have specified up here. And this allows me to essentially have an array of images just for that tag.
Okay, so what goes into those arrays is like public ID or something of the images?
It'll be the whole image object, this whole object here.
Okay.
Yeah,
oh, got it.
Just so I don't have to go look up those again. But that would be a nice optimization, actually, to have just the ID in there. but the same image might be in 2 different arrays, depending on if I tagged it both. So this gets returned to the page, and then from here, I can just pass that data into down into my gallery component. And the selected images is the easier to show. Whatever you select in here is going to be pulling from one of those arrays. So now you can kind of look at different aspects of what these are. And there's a kind of a bonus feature that is overkill for all of this. When you click on an image, I actually add to the URL the collection. So that's the selected group of images, in this case, letter clash, and the index of that image. So if you want to share that with somebody, you can actually, they just use that URL and it'll pop up this image in the lightbox.
Oh.
So kind of state management through
got all the data that they need there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the nice thing about static sites too, is that you do have these shareable links. So.
Yeah.
And I know you called it overkill, Joel, but I can see exactly why you would want to do that, because you're putting all this time into this art. You want it to be represented in the best way possible. So it's not only get to the exact piece you're trying to show, but also in a nice format. So that way it's as big as possible. So that way they can see all the detail you put into it. So I think that level of detail, perfect. I totally agree with what you did there.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and then outside of that, I think that's about it for the lightbox and the gallery there.
I think this is a good time for us to talk about the move, because one thing that we talked about at the beginning was we talked about going from like the concept of WordPress and then deciding to use Gatsby for the project. But I can see, and we alluded to it when we talked about transformations and the Next side of things that Colby helped with, but you moved from Gatsby to Next. What was the decision-making for that? Because it's something that I think we've seen, not necessarily people do, but it's where people are always deciding what should people use for static site generators or for site display. What was the reasoning for the Gatsby to Next move that took place?
Yeah, that's it didn't come easily for me. I love Gatsby. I love how easy it made it to pull from different sources, pull them all together, get something up. A few factors started coming in. I'm primarily an app developer, like web apps. So we use Next.js a lot, and I wanted to get better with that. The issues that I was having with Gatsby so many times when I load up my project locally and have different dependency issues and build issues, those kinds of things. Those were kind of the impetus to move it over to Next.js. But for websites, especially this website like mine, Gatsby is amazing for it. And actually, we have the whole WHO dashboard that our team built. That's all on Gatsby.
Hey, can you show us that? I love that site. It's really cool. Yeah, so this is your work site, right? You built this at work.
Yeah, this was
during the pandemic.
This is kind of an oddball for our team. We're data visualization developers. And then this kind of came into our lap while we were early on in the pandemic.
Important when COVID was really revving up and everybody was kind of needing to know where it was happening and how far away it was from your place where you're at. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially to see the trends and pinpoint areas of interest there.
And so your team built this with Gatsby. That's very, very cool, actually.
Yeah, all of this was Gatsby. has a lot of features, a lot of data. This site has so much data that we've had to continually optimize in different ways because it's multiple data points per day per country. So it just grows so quickly.
I can see how GraphQL could help out when you're dealing with lots and lots of data, because it's going to do a little filtering for you.
Definitely. Yeah, it makes it, especially on a page that shows all the data, like a table where you have everything showing up.
Well, I think this is good to point out, because it's where, you made a choice for your personal presence to be able to move it from Gatsby to Next, but it's also pointing out that both solutions are fantastic for what you might need it for. So it wasn't like, you're moving from a bad source to a good source. You're moving from a good source to a good source that just had different needs and different use cases. So I love this comparison.
I think we've seen a lot. We've talked to a lot of developers who use their blog as a place to test out something new or something they want to learn. So making that choice is not like condemning the thing they're leaving so much as saying, hey, I really want to learn this new thing, that I don't know yet. So, yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes, unless we keep creating multiple sites, our personal site just kind of becomes that.
Joel M. Turner 1, Joel M. Turner 2.
Exactly.
Pick your framework.
Yeah.
But
I ended up creating a joelmturner.com dashboard just to pull in my stats from dev.to and Code Sandbox and one of the others, just to play with Next.js and different variations of it.
Yeah, Becky, this reminds me, I remember one of our initial DevJams episodes, we talked with Ryan Filler, and he was talking about how he moved from Jekyll to Gatsby to Svelte, and he was constantly just moving and moving and moving. So it's where, I agree. It's sometimes it's nice to be able to have that personal presence to be able to test drive something before you try to do it professionally or try to do it at scale. So that's also a massive reason to try something else out.
Yeah, definitely.
So Joel, now that we've seen this, and I'm inspired in many different ways. I mean, first of all, I think I've gushed a lot about the transformations, but but this is fantastic. And I love the fact that you took something that was handmade, hand lettered, be able to have a digital output for that and be able to do something the way that you did it. So it's a fantastic project and concept. Where can people learn more about the work that you're doing? Obviously you have your website, but is there any places that you're contributing maybe insights outside of the blog that you have there? Are you more active on LinkedIn or on Twitter or other places? Where can people learn about Joel?
Yeah, primarily Twitter is probably where I'm most active. I tend to read a lot and not post a lot, but sometimes I'll jump in conversations.
I post my Wordle scores there when I
nice.
But I read it a lot more than I write. So
yeah. But outside of that, dev.to,
dev.to,
try to stay a little bit active on there as well.
Yeah, I would say the same for Becky. You have a good growing Dev.to presence yourself.
Well, I like it there. It's a real easy site to post on and look things up, save things. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, Joel, this has been fantastic. I really love this example here. And of course, we're going to point people to the blog post that you wrote where you detail everything there. I know you have active links into GitHub repos for people to be able to look at this and be able to try to be able to learn from all the concepts that you took the time to learn from as well. So I really appreciate everything that you've done here.
I'm just sorry we didn't get into how you learned PHP while you were a dog sled guy, because that's a good story.
I wouldn't recommend it. It's the slow way to learn, but it worked.
Yeah, I think it could be a part two for sure. Let's have Joel come back and talk about the way that he got to where he's at with this. So maybe there's a little bit of dog sledding adventures we can weave in a future visit.
Good.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Joel, thank you again.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
So, Becky, There's a lot to take away here. There's a ton to take away here because this is an amazing project. Obviously, Instagram is a network that is widely used. We're talking probably millions and millions of users. So this is something where if you're tied to development and Instagram, you've probably seen something there. But what's your overall takeaway from this?
I'm thinking a lot about how I hear a lot of talk about composable architecture and how you're going to pick pieces of a cloud, put your cloud stuff together so that it's easy to compose. And when you think about like an app like Instagram, it's not really part of that composable world. It does have APIs, but it's not really intended. So moving what you own, your content, into something that's composable makes so much sense. And we've seen it here really well, that he was able to then make his move in Gatsby to Next. That's not an easy thing to do, but
No.
How Cloudinary helped with that.
Oh, and I love that yours is so much more articulate than what I was going to say.
No, you were more articulate before. So.
Because it's one of those things where that's an amazing reason for it. And you're right. There's a lot of conversations taking place about composable architecture, headless architecture, all of these concepts, being able to have a single source of truth. So that way, regardless of what you use for your framework or what other systems you hook into it, your content is always there and stable is absolutely true. So I agree with that. My takeaway was just the fact that oh my gosh, Colby Fayok, that guy is just doing all sorts of amazing things. So it's to say Colby, of course, is, and I think we've mentioned him practically on every DevJams episode, but he is one of our lead members on Cloudinary's developer relations team or DevRel teams. And it's where I think in past episodes, we've pointed to plugins or we pointed to just assistance he's provided people in the Cloudinary community, whether it's on Discord servers or on Twitter conversations. So it is to say that if you need assistance with a lot of this stuff, when it comes to image delivery, video delivery, management of this, being able to work with certain files, we have go-to people, and it's between myself, Becky, and others are willing to help, but it's not just the two of us. It's not just the people that are on the support team either. So look out for helpful people like Colby and others, because they can really help guide some of the projects. That way you don't have to build everything from scratch or go hunting through repos. They can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, Colby is amazing. He's always helpful. I know he's really busy, but he always gives me good pointers. He has the series on YouTube called Dev Hints. Very great stuff to learn about Cloudinary in tiny bites. So yeah, we're lucky to have him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think at this point, let's make sure that people have all the details about what to do after this episode, which of course, first, go to joelmturner.com. This is where Joel's whole entire web presence that we talked about in this episode happens to be. You'll notice here that if you want to simply go into the illustration grids and light boxes that we showed, that's going to be straight at the illustration part of his page. So you can go ahead and take a look at all of the great work that he's doing, bringing this content from Instagram onto his web presence, thanks to all of the work that he's done and with assistance from Cloudinary. And he does detail all of this inside of the blog post that he has, Instagram to Cloudinary, as well as some of the things that we talked about, such as the move from Gatsby to Next. It's all very, very well detailed. So it makes it, frankly, easy for you to follow along with the episode. Once this is in a recorded format, you have a chance to follow along, probably side by side with something like this. And to point that out, for those of you that are interested in further DevJams or Cloudinary podcast in general, all of those are going to be found at cloudinary.com podcasts or /podcasts. And you can see not only all the episodes that we've produced, but also links to many of the places where you can listen and watch to the content, such as the Cloudinary Academy, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And I can't not feature this, where I love this transcript feature that one of our team members, Nadine, went and built, where if you are simply just wanting to jump to a certain part of the episode, you just have to click the timestamp and it takes you right to that. It's fantastic. So really easy to follow along with all of the conversations that are taking place. Now, also keep in mind that all of these podcasts, as I mentioned, they're housed in the Cloudinary Academy. That's all of the work that myself, Becky, and others at the company are putting into educating developers on the many use cases that are available with our APIs and the various SDKs that we support. So please take the time to look at that at training.cloudinary.com and keep the conversation going at the Cloudinary community. You can see that we have it at community.cloudinary.com and its associated Discord server that you can easily access directly from there. So before I let everybody go, Becky, any final thoughts? Anything that we want to leave our audience with?
No, just I'd say dive into some of this code. It's really good, very helpful, and get you on a good path.
I agree. I completely agree. So on behalf of everybody at Cloudinary, I'm also going to say on behalf of Joel, because he probably would say so himself. Thank you for being a part of this episode. Thank you for listening and watching to DevJams and being interested potentially in Cloudinary. And we hope to see you at the next one. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.